I'd like to dive into the different ways organizations are handling complex systems. Now, antifragile and fragile, it's the ones that break and the ones that resist change. And there's actually there's another category. It's the ones that thrive from change, the ones that become bigger, stronger from change. Within complex systems, so Nassim Taleb, the author of Antifragile, introduces us to three families of how we cope with these complex systems. Or let's call them three groups on a spectrum of how we fare, how we respond to a complex environment. And this applies to people, to teams, to departments, to organizations, and even if you want to nations or to planets, species as a whole. This essentially applies to us. It applies to me and it applies to you. So what are the three sort of groups? There are those that are fragile, those that prefer tranquility and are hurt, damaged, eventually destroyed by changes. Then there's those that are robust, that can withstand the changes and the stressors. They survive, they make it through. And then finally, there are those that are antifragile, the ones that not only resist the change, the stressors, the volatility, but that actually become stronger from it, right? The people, teams, organizations that become stronger from the complex systems that we evolve in rather than weaker. And when we look at organizations in the modern era or age, we realize that the majority are still fragile. They don't make it. Can share some stats because they are, for example, the thousands of startups or scale-ups that weren't able to pivot rapidly enough. They're also the 52% of Fortune 500 companies that perished in the past 15 years. A shelf life that's never in our modern history been so short. Shelf life of companies has never been shorter. Then you have those that are robust. Now, some organizations fall in the robust category. They survive, but they don't thrive, right? They're just like in survival mode. They don't dominate. And then there are the anti-fragile ones. Let's call them the winners. Let's be a bit arrogant. Let's say they're the winners. Those that were able to adopt anti-fragile characteristics and become anti-fragile. Now, at Growth Tribe, we're super nerdy. We've spent countless hours studying from the outside and the inside the main characteristics of organizations that have been sort of winners, let's say. And, I know what you might be thinking. It's always the same stories of the digital native companies that we bring up. It's always, this is what Google's doing, Netflix, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, or like Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba. But the good news is it's absolutely not just the same digital native tech firms. It's not just big tech that is demonstrating anti-fragile characteristics. We also see many other more traditional or more historical organizations that have been able to thrive in this context. Look at the story of Lego. Look at the story of Microsoft. Look at the story of Disney that are doing some of these right things to adapt, to grow, to get closer to antifragility. So let's start making this a bit more concrete. What we've done is we've uncovered 10 characteristics, leading indicators of antifragility. We've gone back and forth on how to group these with the intention of limiting it to 10, because 10 is a nice round number. And this is what we've found, that these 10 key characteristics are linked to antifragility in the complex technological sort of world that we live in nowadays. Growth mindset, data-informed decision-making, but data-informed organizations, continuous experimentation, an incremental approach, psychological safety, okay to fail, okay to ask questions, not being humiliated, a dedication to continuous learning, the notion of systems thinking, T-shaping, diversity of thought, and disruptive thinking.